Hey friends, and welcome back to the College Essay Guy YouTube channel. My name's Tom Campbell, College Essay Guy's community manager, and I'm here to walk you through all the different sections of the Common Application, which, if you are applying to colleges in the United States, it's pretty highly likely that you may have to fill out this application in your search, since it's accepted by over 1,000 colleges, and it kind of is the default application in the US college education system. Okay, so once you create an account on commonapp.org and you fill out all the necessary questions there, you're going to land on a screen that looks very similar to this. And for the sake of this demo and walkthrough, I'm going to be using a sample student named Troy Bolton. If you are a millennial diva like myself, you probably recognize that name from the seminal classic Disney Channel original movie, High School Musical. Side note, if you haven't seen it, you should definitely find the nearest Disney Plus account near you and start doing some homework, okay? So I'll be walking through each of the Common Application sections as if Troy were applying to college, right? And taking advantage of all the different spaces that the Common Application gives you to allow you to stand out to all the colleges that are on your list. So first things first though, we need to start to add some colleges to our list that we're interested in applying to. The way that you're going to do that is by heading to the College Search tab. This is where you can add any of the schools that are members of the Common Application, and you can add them to your My Colleges tab. Okay, so for Troy here, he has a few schools that are on his current list of schools that he's applying to. So the My Colleges tab is where you're going to answer any of the college-specific questions, supplemental essays, short answer responses, information like whether or not you're planning on applying to financial aid or not at different colleges. And if you're a current or rising senior who is going through the college application process and it's after August 1st of your senior year, that means that all the colleges that are in the Common Application have updated their pages for this particular application cycle, right? And that's very important because sometimes colleges change questions and essays from year to year. So the last thing you want to do is fill out a lot of information and answer different essay questions and prompts from last year's prompts. It happens every year, so I'm just warning you. All right, and it's a good idea, I would say, to start to fill out some of these questions earlier than later. A lot of times they indicate the particular requirements that based on the programs that you're applying to or majors, it will let you know what you need to complete before the deadlines that you select for whatever decision you end up applying to for this particular college, right? So for Bates here, for example, they ask lots of questions that are pretty common for lots of different schools, such as what admission plan are you applying to? Do you plan on submitting your standardized test scores since Bates is a test optional school? But they also want to know information, for example, about your intended majors, where you can put really anything down here. And they also want to know, which is an indication maybe a little bit into their admission process, they want to know a little bit about how you've learned about the school. So if you've done a tour or if you've sent an email to your regional admissions officer. This is information that Bates specifically actually looks for as part of their application process. So if the school is asking questions along these lines, it may be an indication that you may want to start to demonstrate some interest at that school and hop on a virtual tour, visit campus, or email that admissions officer with an introduction, all right? So another reason you want to fill out some of these college-specific questions earlier than later is because the colleges don't necessarily make it one size fits all in terms of where they ask particular questions, and it can change and vary from college to college. I know, I'm just the messenger. So as you can see for University of Chicago, they have some particular questions in their writing supplement section where they ask you to basically choose one essay prompt from a list that you see here on the screen and write a half-page essay essentially about any of the particular prompts that are here. However, University of Southern California, you may log onto this page and think, gee, that's great. There's no supplemental essays for me to complete for USC because there's no writing supplement section. Wrong. So USC, like many other colleges, they put all their supplemental essay questions in their questions tab. And so after filling out a few sections here, say you get to, for example, your academic section and you put in your intended first choice major, which I guess for Troy, let's say he wants to be an engineer. We go to the writing questions and we see that there are these supplemental essays that Troy is being asked to complete, as well as some short answer questions that the school is also hoping for him to complete. Then you see that for the USC engineering school, he's also asked to answer a very particular prompt for that particular college. And not just that, he's actually asked to complete 2. Now, let's say Troy has a change of heart and he decides that he wants to ditch aerospace engineering for English. And so he decides to apply to the College of Arts and Sciences at USC as an English major. You'll see the same questions that he was asked before for that engineering program, but you'll notice there's a completely different essay question that Troy is being asked to complete. So again, the sooner you add colleges to your My Colleges tab and fill this out, the better off you'll be. All right, now let's head to the crux of the Common Application, which is the middle tab here, the Common Application tab. And you'll notice when you first head to this section that a lot of the information that you filled out from when you signed up for a Common Application account has been automatically rolled into this particular profile section. A few ins and outs of the Common App tab that you should know just right before you start to fill in different sections. Anything that has a little red asterisk next to it means that it's a required field for you to complete. However, any that don't have a little red asterisk next to it mean that you can leave it blank. It's totally up to you, so fill out your application as you see fit. And another thing that you'll notice is that Troy has a series of green checkboxes next to all the different sections of his Common Application. The green checkbox means that you've completed all the required fields and it's ready to be submitted. So more green checks means more progress in achieving your college goals. A lot of this section is pretty self-explanatory. It's things like your home address, it's things like your contact information, and again, you have to fill out any of the required fields here. There is one section, the demographics section, that I want to just explain a little bit. So one thing you'll notice is that many sections in the demographics section are completely optional, so you can complete them to the degree that you feel comfortable. There's also a lot of customization in the application using conditional logic. So say, for example, you have a gender that you identify with other than the options that are here on the screen. You can always check the add another gender box, and it will give you a free form text box that you can complete on your own. So this will actually end up happening across the Common Application in many different sections. Now, one important question that you'll notice is completely optional is the race and ethnicity question. So this, again, has many different spaces where, for Troy here, he identifies as white and he has European ancestry, so he selected white and European as part of his application. But you'll notice that for the other racial and ethnic groups that are here as well, there are also opportunities to customize and give more specificity behind how you identify when it comes to your race and background. Currently, based on a 2022 U.S. Supreme Court decision, colleges are not allowed to use the information indicated in these checkboxes as part of their review process. Your race and ethnicity is only discussed if you end up writing about it in your essays or your application in other spaces in your own words. However, the Common Application still collects data on their users and is not be held to the Supreme Court decision, so that's why you'll see it here. So again, you can fill it out if you'd like to, but it's not something that actually will come up or be discussed as part of your admission candidacy. Another tab that I wanted to point out in the profile section of the Common Application is the Common App fee waiver section. So if you're a student who identifies as low income and the fees to apply to the different colleges on your My Colleges tab start to look pretty daunting and they stack up, if you fit any of the criteria that you see here on this screen, it's pretty highly likely that you're eligible for a fee waiver. And this will help make sure that the act of actually applying to college isn't a barrier for your particular situation. All right, next up is the family section, where you'll indicate any information about your parents and siblings, so that way colleges have a better sense of the home environment that you're coming from and how that's influenced your college application search and process. One of the main ways that colleges are going to be getting a sense for your home environment is by looking at the educational background of your family members. One thing I wanted to point out in this application section, if you scroll down to the bottom of the information on your first parent, you'll notice that there's questions about their highest educational level. This is how many colleges get a sense for whether or not you are considered a first generation to college student in their process. Students who come from home environments where, unlike Troy here, their parents may not have attended college, may not know as much about the application process, they may not have known as much about, for example, getting involved in a ton of extracurriculars early on. So bringing in students who have this perspective and lived experience and are coming from environments that are not typically as college going are valued members of different campus communities and something that many admissions offices are looking for when thinking about who to admit as part of their application process. Any student who has some college or university under their parents' education background or some of the other categories that you see here on this list are typically going to be designated as first generation in a college's admission process and committee review discussions. All right, the next tab here is the education section, which is where you're going to indicate your educational background, including your current high school, any former high schools that you may have attended, any gaps in your education, so semesters off or a gap year experience after you graduated from high school. All of that information will be housed under this tab. So for example, with Troy here, let's say he was filming High School Musical while he was actually a high school student, and he had to take some time off to be able to actually do the filming. So if that was Troy's experience, he would check off this box here saying did or will take time off and write a brief rationale, a maximum of 250 words about how he spent that time outside of the standard 4-year high school progression. This is also where you may indicate if, say, for example, you have taken classes as part of a community college or a dual enrollment process, you're welcome to indicate the colleges that you've taken courses on this colleges and universities tab. Now, once you start to get to the grade section and onward, it's really helpful to have a document side by side provided by your high school called your school profile. The school profile will give you valuable information that colleges are interested in knowing, such as your graduating class size, whether or not you rank students, the GPA scale that your particular high school uses. So before you complete this section, I highly recommend asking your school-based counselor for a copy of that school profile so you're entering it as accurately as possible. It's also a good idea to check with your school-based counselor or anyone assisting you with communicating your high school academic record and your courses to colleges, how you should fill in particular course level section, for example, your current and or upcoming senior year courses. You'll see a standardized list of lots of different types of rigor or course level options. However, there's also an NA here in the case that your high school does not utilize these particular sections. Now, this section here is the honors section, and many students are concerned that, say, for example, their high school doesn't have honors or awards, or they don't have a ton of academic awards, that they'll somehow be shirked in various colleges' admission processes. I can tell you from experience reading applications that there are many students who never fill out this section of the application and have amazing college results. And it's often something that I would say students and families overemphasize compared to the way that colleges actually look at this section. It's typically reserved for more academic awards, but no college will ding you or be super upset, or it won't hurt your process if you include achievements that are outside of the official academic realm. So Troy's award that he has here is completely fair game, and he's indicating the grade level where he received this award, as well as the scope of the recognition and the scale of who he was competing against. In this case, it was only students in his own high school, East High School. Go Wildcats. This is also where you'll indicate if you're involved in any outside college access programming or community-based organizations. So say, for example, you're a participant in College Essay Guy's own Match Later Scholars program, which, side note, is a program that we offer to students to give 10 hours of free college counseling to high-achieving low-income students. So you can find information about the Match Later Scholarship below if you're interested in that. It's a great way to get individualized support and help, such as filling out this common application here with a trusted expert. The education section is also where you'll indicate your future plans. So the types of careers you may be interested in pursuing, the majors you may be interested in, anything along those lines. So as you scroll through it, you'll see that you can indicate the highest degree that you plan on attaining to pursue those career goals. It's okay to also be more undecided in this section and to not have quite as clear cut of a vision. But if you do know what you'd like to potentially pursue and you have done things in high school that align with that interest, instead of picking one of the default sections that you have here in the application, I often recommend heading to the Other tab and writing in specifically the type of career that you really envision for yourself, especially if there are particular causes, populations, issues that you'd like to solve with that particular career path. So if you know, but this particular career path for Troy makes a lot of sense based on his interests and the way that he spent his time in the movie High School Musical. All right, next up is the testing section. If you end up wanting to apply test optional to any of the colleges under My Colleges tab, and you don't plan on submitting any scores, it's highly possible to just write no to this section and continue to move on. But if you do have test scores that you'd like to include, even if there are scores beyond your SAT or ACT scores, so say for example you have AP subject tests, this is where you would indicate and self-report those scores to colleges. Now, something that you should know is that when you're submitting your common application to individual colleges, you do that by moving through a series of questions in the My Colleges college-specific tabs under this Review and Submit button. So every time you want to submit your Common App to an individual school, you're able to modify some of the information in your default Common App section from place to place. I don't recommend doing this super extensively and customizing your app from school to school, but this testing section might be one area where, say, you decide you want to self-report some scores to one school, but not to others. You'd answer the questions accordingly and either add or take off scores depending on how you'd like them to be factored into your admission process at different schools. A general rule of thumb is that if you are anywhere within the middle 50% of an individual college's test score ranges that they published in the past year, it gives you a good sense that your test scores are seen as additive and consistent with the college's academic application pool. All right, now this next section is a big one. It's the activities list, which for anyone going through the college application process is something that you want to plan earlier than later. So when it comes to indicating your activities, you're going to be asked to indicate the type of activity, the sport name, your positions and leadership description, the name of the organization. So say it's a team at your particular high school, you'd indicate the name of the team. And then you also complete a short 150 character description about this particular extracurricular activity and when you've participated, when it occurs, how often you spend your time doing it, and whether or not you plan on continuing this activity in college in some way, shape, or form. Now, we have lots of resources at College Essay Guy related to completing your activities list that you'll find linked below. One of my biggest pieces of advice is to, when you're putting together this list and you have a sense for the different ways that you spend your time outside of the classroom beyond basic human functions, there are activities on your application that you probably are going to either explain or establish. And what I mean by that is activities that you want to establish are ones where it's pretty obvious the way that you spend your time from the name of the activity alone. So it's usually pretty obvious about how someone spends their time on the basketball team. In these types of scenarios, I recommend using your description to highlight your unique contributions or the ways that you show up within that community. So for Troy here, you get a sense for that. And you'll also get a sense for his playful personality and the way that he describes his involvement with his basketball team that has a little bit of musical flair. Sometimes students get nervous about not coming up as super professional in their college application, but I would say as someone who's read thousands of applications in my career, it's often more welcome to have these moments where your personality can shine and where you get a sense for your unique contributions versus sending in something that's really sterile and is going to look like every other student's. Now, it's also possible that you're going to have activities that you're going to want to explain where it's not as obvious from the title alone about what it actually entails. So in Troy's case, let's say he was the founder of a nonprofit in his school called We Wildcats. If you're reading this application quickly and you've never seen an organization or a club or activity like that before, you're really going to want to know what it entails from the description alone. So in comparison to his basketball description or his description about his time in the golf team, which if you've seen High School Musical 2, you'll know this is very apropos, is a much more straightforward description of what We Wildcats actually entails and how he spends his time. If you need more space to explain any of the activities that are in your list that are hard to encapsulate in the 150 character description alone, there's always the additional information section, which is coming up next, for you to flush that all out. Now, the last required section of the Common Application is the writing section. And this is where you will include your legendary personal statement to any of the colleges that you apply to. Now, side note, as the name College Essay Guy suggests, we have tons of resources on how to complete your personal statement that you'll find at the link below. But one big tip that I have here related to the Common Application is that you'll see a series of prompts that the Common Application includes that fall under the personal statement umbrella. And my take, and Ethan, the College Essay Guy, agrees with me, is that it's really not as important which prompt you choose for your personal statement. Your supplemental essays for each individual college are a different story. You want to make sure you're answering those questions really, really specifically. But for your personal statement, as long as it's a story about yourself and your skills, qualities, values, and interests, any of the prompts here are fair game to select, and you can always select topic of your choice if you feel like it falls somewhere outside of these umbrellas. I never checked these prompts when I was reading personal statements during my admissions career, and I know my colleagues who are still reading applications have the same perspective on this. Then you'll go ahead and paste in your essay in this particular box. Now, one thing you'll notice is that there are a few stylistic tools that you can select to, for example, italicize your writing, or bold it, or underline it. And oftentimes, actually, when you first copy in this text from, say, Google Docs or Microsoft Word, it's pretty typical for essays to come in automatically bolded. So it's a great idea to unbold that just so that way your admissions officer doesn't land on a page that's like completely bolded and like screaming at you. And then you'll also notice that when you paste it in, it seems as if everything is smushed together with these particular paragraphs because there's no line space break between each paragraph. If you go to the preview section at the top of any of the Common Application tabs, you'll be able to see exactly how it would look to an admissions officer. So in this case, you see a beautifully unbolded essay, pretty line breaks to make sure that the paragraphs are standalone and much easier to read through for that admission officer who, again, is not going to ding your application or toss you in the reject pile if there's giant spaces between paragraphs. But you're just making their process a little easier for them, which never hurts. Now, after you paste in your personal statement, you'll also notice that there's a section where you can indicate whether or not COVID-19 has particularly impacted your educational journey beyond the typical responses like classes went virtual and clubs and organizations and activities were canceled. Every student pretty much had to go through that. So if you have specific ways that it impacted your situation that is different than you noticed with your peers, this might be a great place to add some of that context in. But I also recommend definitely checking off the yes to the additional information section that you see listed here. It gives you up to 650 words to explain any extenuating circumstances that might be part of your educational journey, explain a little bit more about the world that you come from, access to certain classes, and it also gives you a chance to potentially expand a little bit on your extracurricular activities that are super high impact and the ones that you spend the majority of your time doing. So for Troy, for example, you may remember that he had that student-led nonprofit that he had, We Wildcats, to motivate young people to pursue careers and interests in the arts and athletics. Obviously, this activity was really meaningful to Troy and it involved a lot of his time and investment as a high school student. So he went ahead and artfully used the bold, the italic, the underlined sections of the application to kind of create a little bit of an expanded resume to show the impact of who We Wildcats serves, how many students they serve, the types of events that they put on, the amount of money that they raise through different fundraisers, and other valuable information around the intention behind the club. So if you have a similar experience that you feel like needs a little more time in the sun, the additional information section is a great place to do that. Now, this last section, courses and grades, is optional for the vast majority of colleges and universities, but in the case that some of the schools on your application have it, so in Troy's case, University of Southern California, you'll want to again grab a copy of your transcript and painstakingly copy all the information from your transcript into this particular section. Again, I don't make the rules, not 100% sure why individual colleges ask this to be completed, but if it's required, you just got to go ahead and do it. All right, so once you have all those pretty green check marks and you're ready to submit your application to various colleges, you're going to go to the My Colleges tab and click on a particular school. And once you have green check marks on all of their specific tabs, you're ready to head to this last final stage review and submit common application. Now, you may think that just submitting that, you get scared and that it's going to submit it automatically without you checking things over. No, there are multiple little hoops and jumps and disclaimers and checks and boxes and your signature that you need to complete. So accidentally submitting an application to a school is very, very unlikely because there are lots of checks and balances in place to help make sure that you don't do that. So you'll go ahead and keep clicking along the review and submit buttons here. Now, I highly recommend you really scroll through this application and make sure that all the information is accurate and you check for errors. And any of the individual custom responses that you may have adjusted from college to college, say for example, the testing section, you want to make sure that everything that you want to be sent into a college is included in there and the way that you want it to be received. And once you've previewed everything and make sure that your activities look ready to go, they look pretty, you have healthy spaces between your paragraphs, you have a lovely formatted additional information section with any of those extenuating circumstances or expanded achievements, you're ready to press continue. After, of course, checking off this box, making sure you do so. And then it will go on to a third-party payment platform where you'll submit payment for your individual application depending on the fee for the college you've selected. And once you're done with that stage, drum roll, congratulations, you've submitted your first application through the Common App. I hope that overview of the application was helpful. Again, we have tons of resources at College Essay Guy. If you're thinking, I need more help figuring out how to write my supplemental essays, or I haven't refined my activities list, or I still don't know what I want to put in the additional information section, if anything, or you'd like a written version of this particular video, link below you'll find resources on all the application components from the activities list to the personal statement to the additional information section to supplemental essays, as well as a complete common application guide in a written blog form that you may want to reference. All right, much love, best of luck with your college journeys, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.